Kaushal Varta, a skill talk. Hello, Vanakkam, Namaste, and welcome to yet another episode of Kaushal Varta, a skill talk, LendAHandIndia's podcast. So, जिंदगी क्या होती है? जिंदगी अनुभव होती है, right? हर एक चीज़ों के अनुभव लेते हैं और आगे उसी अनुभवों के साथ हम वापस जिंदगी जीते रहते हैं, राइट? तो वैसे ही एक अनुभव हमारे साथ है इस बार. Hello Anubhav, welcome to the podcast. How are you feeling right now?
Hi Kamla, I am feeling good. Just came back from a retreat or maybe an annual meeting.
Right.
So yeah.
How did that retreat treat you, if I may ask?
So I mean, I wouldn't call it a retreat as such. It was more like a leadership huddle, a circle of stewardship that meets very frequently every 2 months.
Right.
And there were certain areas that we've been discussing so far. There are agendas that are set every meeting. So we were just looking at certain annual plans and what are the teams doing and how do we synergize with each other. So more or less on those lines.
Wow. Right. मतलब आप leadership space में से ऐसे सीधा इधर आए हैं?
Yes. हाँ.
Okay. Let's just have some chill time.
Yes.
First question is, आपका अनुभव development sector में काफी है, as far as I've heard.
Okay.
So let's start with why development sector? Why did you enter the sector and what made you come in? And other than educational space, where else were your experiences?
So development sector, so I've had a small journey also here. I was not from the development sector from the very beginning. I started my career from the corporate.
Right.
And so a little bit of background is I was an engineer.
Right.
I was an engineer. And after my graduation, during my graduation, in fact, I used to volunteer with organizations there. I was studying in Dehradun. So I used to work with an organization called Veena Vadni Vocational Institute. That was working in vocational. They used to work with women who were rescued from sex trafficking.
Right.
So there was an area called Prem Nagar karke tha. So I joined one of two rescue missions, and then they put me in the vocational training part of it. So the women who came from there. So I think from there I drew an inclination towards this kind of work.
Right.
And but then I did not choose it as a career option. And after my graduation, I pursued my career in corporate. I started working as a network engineer. So I worked for almost 2 years, 2.5 years as a network engineer. I was working in Hyderabad actually. So Hyderabad maybe then it started from a very basic thing. I didn't wanted to go in formals to the office, and I was not liking that culture. Why do I have to be formals every day and to shave and all of that, and so it was not sinking in very well. So then that's when I realized value. तो उस समय I wasn't very aware that there are value conflicts or ऐसा कुछ हो रहा है or things. Then I started working वहाँ पे with couple of NGOs. काफ़ी टाइम मिलता था, मतलब I realized कॉर्पोरेट में टाइम काफ़ी मिल जाता है, मतलब अर्ली स्टेजेस में. So yes, started working with one of the NGO जो again सुनीता कृष्ण जी का NGO था शायद, प्रज्वला करके. So उनके साथ थोड़ा बहुत काम करना शुरू किया, वॉलंटियर करना. फिर then I started working with another NGO जो बच्चों के साथ मतलब शेल्टर होम था वहाँ पे. तो उनके साथ just giving them some time, talking to them,
right.
educating, computers पढ़ाना, कुछ करना उनको.
Right.
तो ऐसा करते थे. And it was not an individual thing, मतलब कुछ there was a community of people who were doing this.
So
yeah.
How long has it been now in the development sector?
मुझे so I started so 2015 is when officially I joined development sector.
Right.
Because after that instant of my corporate work, I joined Azim Premji because I wanted to sort of understand the world first and be more prepared, and so pursued Master of Arts MA in education from Azim Premji, and Azim Premji really changed my perspective in world. And from there, then my first stint was with Pyramid Foundation for Education Leadership. Fortunately, unfortunately, I started as a technology lead there वहाँ पे and designing dashboards for them, but for government schools.
Right.
So yeah, and the nature of work was to work for government school children, managing operations of technology in the rurals of Rajasthan or here and there. So yeah, I mean, so that's how I sort of got into development sector. But I mean, one thing I would like to say that it wasn't by chance; it was by choice,
yes.
as such actually.
So when you said that बहुत time मिलता था corporate में, तो as far as I've noticed, I've heard from people, you're somebody who is very rarely available. मतलब आप किसी ना किसी चीज़ में घुसते रहते हो and you're into lot of tasks and to have your right space and keep asking for you is a task. For me, example, इनको पकड़ने के लिए मुझे time लगा था. But no, so that gives me a different perspective of having time in the development sector compared to corporate. So how much time consumption happens in the development sector and how do you balance?
So I think at some point of time I realized that the concept of work-life balance doesn't it doesn't really work actually. In development sector it becomes your way of life.
Right.
Right. I mean that's what I learned somewhere, and then your actions, your thoughts, everything is inclined to what you are pursuing as a job, as a mission, right? So of course you do need to find time for other things which are not completely not related to your work, but then you really can't classify things, right? I mean, then you just have to find a balance of things. And the sector is very consuming, the work is very consuming here. The timelines are very haywire, especially the nature of work that we do as a LendAHand as an organization, because I've also seen, in fact in Piramal when I was working initial 6 months, so I didn't feel really engaged. I was working one of the technology partner and my role was to just manage the partner, design dashboards, give it to them, get requirements from the field. So I mean that was also a very lighter job. But the moment I started getting into ops, I told my boss to let me get into operations, and he threw me completely into the field and told me, "ठीक है, Rajasthan देखो, तुम Maharashtra देखो," and that's when I think the life changed very drastically. So I realized it really depends on how you want to engage yourself, right?
Right.
I mean, if you are really looking for more work, if you have more hunger to do things, then you are completely consumed. Then the demand is 200% from you, right? But if you also want to just be on the sidelines and do your work and like live comfortably, that's also a choice available in this sector.
Right.
So I mean, there are all kinds available. I think it's up to the individual how he or she takes it up.
So if I can share my experience, क्या हो गया, initially I was also like, हाँ मैं काम कर रही हूँ 6 बजे तक 7 बजे तक, then मैं चली जाती हूँ. But what happens is, मेरा थोड़ा creative space में है, तो concept सोचना है, ऐसे रहता है, तो कभी भी आपको दिमाग में आता है, right? One day I remember I woke up at 4 in the morning. मेरे dreams में मेरा boss आया and बोले कि एक वीडियो में ये concept कर सकते क्या? And that day morning I had that concept and immediately I noted it. मैंने ऐसे उठ के phone ढूंढा and then I wrote it down. And it struck me, okay, so because the work space where we are, like the children who we are working with or the stakeholders we are engaging with, ये सब हमारे आसपास में हैं and they're a part of a life and I engage with them like here and there all the time. So there is no particular space telling like मैं अभी ही इनके बारे में सोचूंगी, right?
Yes.
So if you have such circumstance where randomly you feel something and get an idea and go crack with it, I think there will be a lot of instances.
हाँ, that happens very often actually. कल ही आकाश ने हमें एक डैशबोर्ड दिखाया था for Maharashtra as a state, and it's a very exhaustive and pretty lengthy dashboard that he was showing with a lot of indicators, and the exercise was that you guys take a look and decide what is it that you want to do, what actions can you do.
Right.
Don't suggest what else can be added, but what can you do using this dashboard. Very intrigued to look at it, and but then we decided कि 15 मिनट करेंगे उसको and then we'll take the next session. Somehow कि अभी 15 मिनट नहीं मिल रहा है, we do it later. Today morning I woke up at 4. मतलब I couldn't sleep. Somehow I woke up at 4 and 4:30 I thought कि यार dashboard देखते हैं. And I opened it up and started looking into it and started making notes. Karthik was sleeping next to me and he was like कि क्या कर रहे हो रे? So and I had some thoughts immediately कि अभी देखना वो craving हो गया क्या हो रहा है उसके अंदर. So yeah, I mean it happens very frequently.
4 o'clock has something to do
4 o'clock has something to do.
NGO people. So being a boss and who is always available, right? Always occupied, always at work. How does that affect you being a leader or a boss? Because now I can sense your transformation from being an engineer, a technical person or technological person, becoming a leader, right? We can cover that. So let's start with this question. How is it working with teams, etc.?
So एक तो ये है कि not a boss as such. I never felt like a boss. One of the priority has always been to have a comfortable space with the team members, my immediate people that I work with actually. And the priority has always been, and therefore the priority is that my team should always have an access to me as and when required. Right? And it works both ways also, right? I have also been troubling them at 12 in the night or 10 in the night or early morning 5 a.m. So that also happens, right? And the team has been there. So it's a very symbiotic relationship that we've developed.
So with that said, you have people in different states handling, so they themselves are leaders for a lot of tasks.
For their own worlds.
And the dynamics and the characteristics of each state and the problems that they face are very different. How do you keep a check on those?
So while they are different, they're sometimes very similar as well. The nature of the problem is same, but the context and the approach could be different. So that's how we look at it. Firstly, तो मैंने एक टीम अनुभव करके ग्रुप बनाया हुआ है WhatsApp का, where all my team members that I closely work with, they're all there. So
regardless of the state, the project.
हाँ. So team अनुभव करके जो group है वो बनी हुई है. Everybody who needs access to any kind of information is available there.
Beautiful.
So it is important for my team to at least do all the sharing of challenges, information there. I've been nudging them to be more proactive on that group. But yes, so that is one way of handling things, so that they also know that sometimes I don't have to intervene. The problems are there and they find solutions within themselves as well.
Oh wow, smart.
So that's one way of looking at it. Second, I think I had a challenge. It was not easy actually, but I think of lately I've started doing the whole check-ins wala thing. There are dedicated slots and check-ins available. So in that we discuss challenges, we discuss priorities. So that has really helped for the team members. And team members also find it little more satisfying because now there's dedicated slot available wherein they can speak to me, and it is not very sporadic now. So that is also helpful. These are 2-3 things that I do, but it is important to visit the state. It is important to go and see what is happening there, right? Because how much ever you conversate, you may not have the context in place, and unless you've sat in that office, unless you've met the officer, it's very difficult to understand. So now you know कि हिमाचल में अगर चियानी मुझे बोल रही है कि status the officer is not approving this file, I would be able to empathize better because I know I've interacted with that officer multiple times. If I know my Jharkhand team is telling me कि this is stuck because of this, how do we move? I would at least know कि I can make a call to that officer, or I know what could be his problem. So things like that. So it's important to sort of immerse yourself in the context as well. While you operate from Delhi, you need to be a little more immersive as well.
So you have team members, or everybody has a team member in the organization or in the development sector who all come inside with an idea of development of their own.
Could
right?
be, yeah.
If I might be wrong, please correct me. So when perspectives are different, how do you seek alignment, or how do you exchange ideas?
So See, always there's the beauty of development sector that you have different perspectives.
Right.
It is important to have different perspectives.
Right.
And because unless you don't have it, then you're not really growing or you're really finding the right solutions.
Sure.
Right? Then it is more of a collective's opinion, so to say. And how do I manage this is often what we do is the alignment of what is it or where is it that we want to go, what is the end outcome that we want to arrive at. I mean, if that expectation or that alignment is set between the team members or with our group that I'm working with in that context, no? So that helps you to sort of then drive or navigate towards that conversation or towards that thing. Black hat thinking is not something that I prefer. Green hat thinking often helps. And I've been often.
If you can explain what is a green hat thinking.
So green hat thinking is when you're more open to ideas and you are very inquisitive. You're curious to know, and then your perspective, your ideas are flowing in, not cutting each other. कि अच्छा ये तो नहीं हो सकता, right? While black hat thinking is needed, but not always. So we also, as a team, we've realized this. What are situations where we need black hat thinking, where we need green hat thinking. So that is there.
With that being said, if I may ask, what is your idea of development in general?
Idea of development. I don't know. There can't be one idea of development. One, because given the context, the country,
right,
the variety, the diversity that we have now. So, but personally, what I hold very close to me is rights. Rights matter to me a lot, actually. That is one. And inclusivity is something that I vouch for, actually. So, yeah, these are two things that I mean, if we are able to create a space where people or everyone is able to exercise their rights, their agency, and it's an inclusive space, I feel that's a developing space, it's a growing space.
So, just as you mentioned, things are very subjective. Right?
What is subjective?
Rights is not subjective, right? Rights are not subjective, but the idea of needs or requirement,
yes,
that we work towards in the development sector, right? We work in this space just as we have the theme, learning through challenges. So we all keep addressing some or the other challenges of certain set of stakeholders or community, right? So how do you see the subjectivity in education system in India and the gap in the education system? So because we work in education
system, right. So subjectivity is something which I would say is actually needed in education, and I wouldn't call it a subjectivity, but the context of education, of the geography, of that culture is needed, right? That's how you are educating, and then it has to be a mix of the context which is there, and then the larger aims of education which is defined, what are the objectives of education, and therefore this whole policy and everything is needed. Right. Actually, that's where it trickles down.
Right.
Right. That is one. I also feel that because education is a concurrent subject, and that is why it is a concurrent subject, right? Both state and the center has an equal amount of say there, right? And it is important, therefore. Gap के terms में there are huge gaps that we need to look at, and I think we are very, very far behind in terms of having equitable or equality in education, so to say, and that is also not just because of education, because of the economic inequalities as well, right?
Right.
So I mean, I don't know, it's a difficult question also, because it's a very large, it's a very huge thing, open canvas.
So if I can make the question easy for you,
Yeah.
let's go in terms of LendAHandIndia.
LendAHandIndia,
Right.
okay.
how do we play with subjectivity and how do we provide subjectivity? How do we cater? Maybe provide may not be the right term. How do we cater depending on the subjectivity?
So, I mean, subjectivity, I'm not very sure if we are aiming to cater subjectivity as such. Our idea is that how do we integrate vocational education into mainstream education, make people self-reliant, right? And that's the definition which you have to seek and take it and apply it in the context. So let's say if I am looking for doing something like this in this Dumka district in Jharkhand or maybe in Chamoli in HP. So I need to, as an organization, we do understand that what are the priorities, what are the economic background, what is the occupations of the children and the community, what kind of learning will help them. And if we look at a setup in Delhi, so to say, which is more towards urban and which may have more resources, access to resources is there, right? So your delivery of the program will change accordingly. But the curriculum by and large is more or less the same because we're trying to help learn a skill, right? And somebody who has to learn bicycle, let's say, or who has to learn carpentry, the skill of carpentry would remain the same, be it in HP or be it in West Bengal.
True.
So, and the way to learn it as well is going to be the same. It's just maybe more empathy, at least first, in about the context, and the language is secondary. The amount of time that may be needed, right? So things like that is how we will be able to manage the subjectivity.
That's exactly why I asked the question, because we work in different states, and even if, as simple as the traits that we have varies from state to state, district to district, and even school to school sometimes. So Anubhav, last question for you is, how much do you think a challenge is important? How much important challenges are in one's life, career, and how have you been embracing challenges?
Okay, so challenges are very important. I think, and I don't know if there's anything which can happen without any challenges, right? In general, in life as such, right? So such is life. In our work in vocational education in LendAHandIndia, थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा ही होता है. It is like on the other end of the spectrum here, because you're working with the state department, you're working with the community, government schools, you're working on a project which is again stigmatized for years, right? So it is already, the context is already so much challenging, but had it not been challenging, you would also not realize that what are the deep-rooted problems of it, how ingrained are these problems in the behaviors and the mindset more than the resources and technical skills. So it also helps you to learn actually and evolve, right? Then you are also able to see that how big is the aim for you that you need to, how big is the goal actually for you to achieve. So that is one, I think. Secondly, as a team also challenges are important, because I somehow feel that whenever a team is thrown in a challenge, they come together very well, they bond together, right? And for me, my strength has been the team members that I work with, right? And the project strength has been the team that has been put together. So always strive to build a team, because that's how you overcome the challenges as well.
True.
So that way I see it's important. But the challenges should not become roadblocks, is what you are really not able to move through it, pass through it, and the opportunity cost of the challenges when it becomes roadblocks should not be that high that it start affecting the whole purpose of what you're doing.
Right.
So yeah, so I'll cut it.
Beautiful. Challenges जितने unavoidable है उतने ही important हैं. So anybody who is intending to listen to this podcast or listening to, one thing I would definitely say is starting from how a corporate person can enter social sector very gently, unknowingly, yet very mindfully making the choice, to how much we delve into one particular concept. क्योंकि आपने कहानी सुना हो तो he did a lot of work, right? You worked in different spaces. वैसे ही most of the corporate people contribute to the development sector. हमने यहाँ इन बच्चों को सिखाया, we worked in this particular NGO, volunteer किए, तो वो random task से लेके अभी पूरा एक ही concept में deep dive करके काम करना is huge. And apart from that, we also spoke about challenges, especially in perspective of educational system or majorly in terms of LendAHandIndia, how we face challenges and the subjectivity that we keep we keep experiencing in terms of the range of stakeholders we work with. Thank you so much, Anubhav. It was
Thank you.
बहुत अच्छा अनुभव था आपके साथ बात करना. Can you tell how did you feel?
Nini, I am really glad that I could have this conversation. I love having such conversations actually, because you don't get really time to talk on those tangents nowadays much. Right, so yes, I did enjoy it, and thank you for taking out time to do this. I am really sorry that we could not connect for this. This was spending for quite some time, so and you to chase me also. But yes,
but it's
my
okay. It was
apologies.
fun. I hope leadership space में से थोड़ा आपको
Yes. I mean, it was very
diversion
energizing as well. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. Keep listening. There are more to come on Kaushal Varta Skill Talk, a podcast by LendAHandIndia.